Good day, good people. I am Rod Trent, once again visiting your ear space with some news, views, and updates. All right, so in this episode of After the Blog, I want to give you a real world, on the ground perspective of this Microsoft AI tour that everyone keeps talking about, particularly the one from last week in San Francisco. But I also want to talk a little bit why this is an excellent event that you should absolutely consider attending. All right, so Microsoft AI, this tour, is a one-day event. There's many dates, many regions, many locations. I'll leave link to the tour information in the show notes so you can check it out to see if any of them are in your area. This is a free event. All right, so no cost to register, no cost to attend. We even supply lunch, which is super awesome. And San Francisco lunch was actually, there's a story behind that. Maybe I'll get to that here in a minute. All right, so in San Francisco, I gave 2 sessions. And these are the sessions that I've been working on for the past few weeks that you might be interested in, obviously, because you do listen in here. I talk a lot about security. I talk a lot about AI. But the 2 sessions that I gave last week, the first one was called Future of Security with AI. And the second one was called Securing Generative AI Applications. So just a little bit about each one of those, just to kind of make you aware, get you interested in this potential content, because this tour, this event is not recorded and not available for replay. So the idea here is that it's an in-person event, and that's where you glean the value from this. I have heard, I think, recently from someone that, maybe eventually these things would be recorded and released later on. So we'll just see how that works out. All right, so the first session, Future of Security with AI. So I delivered that. That's an interesting session in that it's focused primarily on developers and trying to interest developers and bring awareness to developing secure code. Because, quite honestly, if you go back and consider what we're doing when we are developing and what we're talking about with securing AI, it boils down to ensuring that number one, the code is secure first. And quite honestly, it goes back to a long discussion that's been a thing between IT pros, security people, and developers for as long as I can remember. And I've been in this industry for a long time. But it's just that if we would just develop code and applications securely, then these other tools, security tools, wouldn't be as necessary. Obviously, there's going to be outliers, and there's some things that we can't catch, but that's just the case. But that's what this session is about, and about how there's been a huge investment over the number of years, 10, 12 years, something like that, investing in learning and education around security, secure code, how to develop secure code. But it's really kind of not worked, right, a little bit. But we're doing some things at Microsoft with GitHub Advanced Security, which I talk about during that session. Some things you can turn on so that this security thing doesn't have to be this thing that becomes a distraction for a developer or a creator or a builder, right? So there's this whole creative process that goes into developing, and kind of, I think at the core for a developer, you are a creative person. You're creating something, part of that creative process. If there's any sort of distraction, by the time you get back to that thing that you were building, your approach will be different. It might turn out completely different than you had imagined, or it might be to the point where it has to be trashed and rebuilt from scratch again. So whatever that result is completely different. So that's kind of the approach for this. Let's turn on the things. Let's use technology, because we have technology today to help work so developers can continue to work with their secure code, but there's some things we could do on the back end to help security teams actually do those security reviews. So let the creators create, let the security people do their job, and that's a great way for those 2 teams to work together. I also, part of that, it is called The Future of Security with AI, so the title is interesting. I do talk at the end of that session and give a demo for Security Copilot. So for those interested, there is an actual demo of Security Copilot as part of that session. Now, the second session, Securing Generative AI Applications, that is more or less a state of the union about what we have done or what we are doing and continuing to evolve at Microsoft around securing generative AI applications, right? So we go back to the early days of ChatGPT and figure out start having all of those discussions around how do we secure this thing? Can we use it? Should we use it? What's going to happen? What does the security landscape look like from this perspective? So I give you the entire story of what we've been doing for the past year and a half around generative AI. Now, this is not something that just started a year and a half ago. Microsoft has been working with AI and machine learning and things like that for a while, so we have a really good base to start with. But I talked through that in this session, so that's kind of interesting. It was super interesting to me to hear the feedback from the audience because they were super appreciative that we were talking about this at a kind of clearly developer-themed conference. So they were really excited that there was AI security discussions that we were having as part of that event, and we'll continue to do that with all these other dates. I was trying to think, we also from that session talked a little bit about the things that we're doing at Microsoft from a security red teaming, not just for security, but for responsible AI. So it's a very, very interesting session. I am actually giving that session, once again, we'll talk here in a minute, about in New York City next week. So I want you to be aware of that. We are coming to New York City next week. Again, look at the show notes, look at that link. And if you're in that area, I would absolutely love to see you there. All right. So from my personal perspective, I have been involved in conferences and events very similar to this for a long time. All right. This was an amazing event. Put on spectacularly. It was great. There were sessions all day long, starting with a technical keynote that went through the rest of the day. I think probably like 8:30 to 4:30, 5 o'clock. So that's a pretty long day, but it's a lot of content. There were work sessions all day. There were also workshops. If you didn't want to go to a session, there were workshops where you can go get your hands on these technologies. Surprised me being in San Francisco, West Coast. Already me traveling there from the East Coast to the West Coast. There's that time zone thing and trying to get acclimated with the time. I was only there a day, so that was absolutely impossible. But there were people that were in San Francisco that I talked to that were there from other places. Since it's a free event, there's no registration fee. It's free to attend. Their companies paid for them to come from places like Houston, other places, Milwaukee, the East Coast. So there was a little bit of travel for them, but it was absolutely worth it because I asked that question. There was a real appreciation, like I mentioned before, that there were actual security topics. There were people that came up to me after the sessions. Oh my goodness, I can't believe there's security stuff here. One person said, I actually brought my security person with me, thinking, there might be, and there were, so it really worked out for them as well. And it also was interesting to me. I think the crowd is growing bigger and bigger. The number of people that, as they're starting to develop or starting to look at utilizing generative AI in their organizations, they are becoming more and more interested in figuring out how to secure AI, or at least having that discussion. So, like I said, that crowd is getting bigger and bigger. So the things that we've done based for awareness over the past year and a half or so, I think it's finally taken hold. I asked also, which I thought was super interesting, this may be interesting to you as well, the number of people in my sessions that use the OpenAI version of generative AI, ChatGPT, to develop, or versus the Azure, our services, the OpenAI or Azure AI services. And it was surprising. I thought it would be just the opposite, but the minority was the public version, OpenAI, and more people are using Azure. And I asked, well, why is that? And they said, because of the security. And again, I thought that was great. Another little thing I thought was interesting, I actually met a Security Copilot EAP participant, someone in the early adopter program in real life in San Francisco. They came up, introduced themselves. We talked about Security Copilot for a little while. I swear I felt like I was finding a unicorn. I almost felt like snapping a picture with this person, posting it on eBay, just literally see how much I could get for it. Because in real life, seeing a Security Copilot EAP participant is very, very rare. I felt like, again, I was kind of hunting Pokemon. Speaking of Security Copilot, as I know many of you are interested, I'll be ramping up coverage on Security Copilot on this blog. So expect that. And PS, by launch or by GA, we'll actually be calling it Copilot for Security. So yay for Microsoft rebranding. All right, so kind of be prepared for that. We're doing that with all our Copilots, doing something a little unique and different just to kind of make them all distinct. All right, okay, so now I will be in New York City next week talking about security and AI again, and that is on the 25th for this AI tour. So I'll leave the link in the show notes, but you should definitely consider registering to attend. This is a great event. And again, it's free. Literally costs you nothing to attend. This is the New York City one is actually a special one too, because Mark Russinovich, Corey Sanders will be leading the technical discussion for the keynote in the morning. But I think between 4:30 and 5, or I forget, something like the end of the day, we're going to kind of have there's going to be an interview session where you can filter in the keynote room, and Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, will be on hand to discuss AI, copilots, and all the goodness. All right. So who doesn't want to hear from these folks live? And if you're not coming to see me, come see these people, and it's going to be in person, right? So, and before you ask, these events are not recorded or streamed. And I mentioned that, but I just want to reiterate, you absolutely have to be in attendance to get the value. Of course, since it's a free event, anything beyond hi and welcome, kind of you have to think about, should be kind of enough value if you're not paying for it, right? But honestly, the in-person comments made this event seem like it is the top tier event to attend this year if you absolutely can. When you look at the event page, you'll see there are plenty of dates left for this tour, okay? I'm being told many more will be added in the near future, so there might be some other closer, more regional events for you, so just kind of hold off if you don't see those now. The dates for these events will be all over planet Earth, so there should be something hopefully for everyone. I may not be at every single one. In fact, we have a couple coming up, one in India, one in Sydney, Australia, that I will not be at. Someone else will be delivering those. But I do recommend that you get there anyway. Okay, there's a possibility that I might be potentially at the Paris date or Berlin. I'm not sure. So those aren't confirmed, but I will absolutely let you know if that changes. But I will be in Denmark, March 20th, keynoting for the Experts Live conference there, and I hope to see many of you again in real life. All right. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes for that too, so you can find it. All right. So that's it for me this time. Okay. Thank you for listening in, and I hope to see you in real life very soon.